So welcome everyone. Happy 2022. We hope it is healthy for all of us, but for the most important part of it, we want it to be blue. And that's why we're here tonight. Most of you are very dedicated members. You're already helping people to register to vote. But the purpose of our gathering tonight is to make sure we get the word out that in order to have an active voice and make sure our opinions and feelings are heard in Washington, we have got to be registered to vote in our home states and be able to communicate our needs as American citizens outside of the US, as well as for our friends who remain in the US, as well as our family. We're going to start out with a Greek tradition tonight before we turn into our other Greek tradition of a Kafeneion, and that is with the Vasilopita. Most of you know the tradition, but I'll just go through it very quickly for you so that you have a little bit of a memory of the background. The history of the Vasilopita goes back to ancient festivals such as Kronia and Saturnalia. And it's also connected to the legend of Saint Basil, or Aios Vasilis. Supposedly, he implored citizens of Caesarea, the place where he was from, to raise money in order to stop a siege. Each citizen was to give whatever they had in the form of coins or jewelry. When the ransom was handed over, the intruder said, "Nope, it's okay. We can't believe that you actually handed this all over to us. We're going to give it back." So St. Basil was suddenly faced with an issue of, okay, I don't know where all this stuff came from, and I don't know how to give it back. So he came up with the ingenious idea of putting each gold trinket or item of value that was metallic inside a loaf of bread on the 1st of January. And it was distributed back to the community that had given. They even say that amazingly, the same items found their way back to the same person. I tend to doubt that a little bit, but it makes for a nice myth. Anyway, in order to honor St. Basil, Greeks across the world begin the new year by making a Vasilopita. Some of them make it in the form of a sweet bread. Others make it in the form of cake. I tend to use a lot of amaretto in mine, and there's always a €2 coin. And along with the €2 coin, we get the goody. And that's what you're seeing here. So I'll be happy to mail that to have whoever wins that tonight. Okay, now, to start out, we normally, if you're in a home that's a Christian home, they will cross the cake in the sign of the crucifixion, and they will cut a piece for Christ and other members of the Holy Trinity and anybody that they think that's important. For organizations in Greece, normally the piece is cut for the organizations, its important members, and so forth. So we're going to do it in a very secular way and go without the cross and so forth. So let me take all this stuff off.
And in some organizations, the coin is prefabricatedly put in a certain place so that the president or the chair will get it.
So in this case, very honestly, I have no idea where it's at. I know it got dropped in at some point this afternoon when it went into the oven, but I can't tell you where exactly.
Okay,
so
we believe you.
Our first piece, now I'm going to do this in another way, guys.
It's for the organization.
Yes, and I'm going to do a star for the Stars and Stripes of the US. So I've just cut a nice little star into it. The first piece goes to Democrats Abroad Greece.
All right.
And Democrats Abroad Greece has existed for a number of decades and has been supporting Americans who live in Greece to get themselves registered to vote and voting. And let's see. Well,
Seem to have the coin.
nope. Okay, the
We need to
next
start
piece I'd
measuring,
like to
Stacy.
cut.
We've just been joined by 5 more members. We have 21 now. Do you have enough pieces scored out there?
Well, I will get the names in just a minute before we do the final pick. So I've got all the names of the members once we get to our members who have joined. The next piece goes to our president and our vice president, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. God knows they
Don't make
They
them
need
too
that
big.
coin.
Don't make them too big. You're taking away our chances to win the coin. Cut smaller pieces, please.
And there we go, you guys. The coin goes to President Biden and Kamala Harris.
Hey,
All right.
I
What
feel
did
a
I tell
setup.
you?
I feel a setup here.
It wasn't really, it wasn't. Our next piece goes to
Didn't
the
I just
Democratic
say it
Party.
always goes to the president or chair?
Well, we'll get to them eventually. And the next piece after that will go to the Democratic Party. So we've got the whole rest of the piece. Now, I've got a couple members who have just joined. So let me make sure I've got your names. I see Bessie Sutas.
Do you have a
And
number, a total number, so that you can figure out how
I
to
see
cut the Pita?
Daniel.
How many of us?
Marion, what would the
21.
point be of cutting it up?
Oh, you're not going to send us the piece as well?
No, you're just gonna get the hoodie. But it's a nice idea. I would be so worried with the Greek postal system that you'd never see it.
Okay. Then at least we should sign a card and send it to President Biden.
I definitely think we
informing
should.
him that he's the lucky winner.
I'm taking a look. I've just added Bessie and Anna. I think I see 21 members now. Okay. Why am I not seeing everybody here? Daniel, I've got you. Okay, let me do a real quick count to make sure I've got everybody that's on. Okay, we're all here. Dimitri, can you come and help me for a minute? Okay, if you'll do me a favor, mix those up. Mix those up for me. Okay. Close your eyes and pick one out. Don't lose any. Thank you. And our winner for her good luck is Marion Cavalleros. Congratulations.
Sorry. How did this happen?
So here's your hoodie, darling.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll
And
be
I'll be
asking you to
sending-
turn over your emails as soon as this meeting is over, so that you know
what?
nothing has happened.
Congratulations, Marianne.
A few years ago, I think a couple of years ago, Stacy promised that she would take me and Nick out for dinner.
And we're still on the wait because of
Never know.
COVID.
So I'm piling up the promises and hopefully, she will honor. promises.
I'm very glad that you got the hoodie on behalf of President Biden and Vice President Harris. I'll be happy to send them an email and let them know that they are the winners. And if they want a hoodie, I've got plenty more where that came from. So
Thank you so much. Happy New Year to
Puranya
everybody.
Pola, Happy New
Puranya
Year. May 2022 be, as I said, healthy and very blue. I'm going to hand it over to our GOTV chair, and GOTV means Get Out the Vote, Charity Moskopoulos, so that she can tell you a little about what's needed in order to make sure that you're registered to vote this year and every year. Okay, Charity?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. So I'm going to share you a screen. Oh, and I also wanted to say we have a lot of our volunteers who are calling everybody on this call. So if they have anything they want to share or, experience or something that I've missed, please, feel free to jump in and add it. Any questions also welcome. So I'm going to jump over to Get Out the Vote, the .org, and start there. Oops. Okay, everybody see it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I want to do is just kind of go around the site and show you what's there because it's not always apparent. And this is where we suggest that people go who are abroad and want to register to vote. It's nonpartisan, even though Democrats Abroad runs it, but it is for anybody abroad who wants to register to vote and check their voting status and things like that. Right here, upcoming elections, that shows you chronologically, date-wise, what's happening in whatever state may be having, in this case, primaries. Down at the bottom, which I can't, let's see. Down at the bottom, it says all upcoming elections. And then it says select, it goes right to the state section. And it says select your state. So I'm going to do that. Let's do California. And what it shows you there is all the election, the primary dates, the general election, the registration deadlines, the ballot request, when you have to have that in, and the ballot returns when you have to have that in. Okay, let me go back to Virginia because the state I vote in is Virginia, and that's a little bit different. But it's a good place to go and get an idea of what, so here it says overseas citizens. So in this case, there's a different date, there are a different set of dates for us than there are for the people that live in Virginia who are there. Okay. Any other special elections? I found on Ballotpedia, you can go there and look and see, like, for your Texas has had or is having a special election for one district for their state government. And a lot of the states do that throughout the year. So that's one good reason to register early in January, so that if you are able to vote in those special elections, you get the ballots automatically if you're registered. Then we go to this state voting, and you can see it's right there. I have these pictures here. I can't see it. And again, like if I go to Virginia, there's a bunch of interesting things that are good to know. So delivery methods, what does the state of Virginia allow me to send back or my ballots? How do they allow me to send it back? So registration can be email, fax, or postal mail. The ballot request, email, fax, or postal mail. And the ballot return, postal mail only. And so those are things you need to be aware of. Of course, when you get your ballot, usually that stuff is on the ballot, so you can tell right away what's going on. And this other information is from last year, so it's not relevant. And then I showed you this. So the deadlines. Okay, so here, find your election office. And that's important so that you know who to contact and where you actually will be sending your ballot back to, what area. And mine is not Franklin County. Never mind. So here is Franklin County, which is not but that's okay. And it tells you here where it is, where do you find it, and who to write if you have any questions or call. So that's very useful to know. Then down here, you see, am I registered? And I won't take you through the whole thing, but that takes you directly to Virginia. You see up here in the left corner, it says virginia.gov. If you put Texas in there, it would take you to texas.gov and so on. So you can go and check you can register to vote here. You can check your registration status, find your polling place if you're going to be local and voting in the United States, or apply to vote absentee. And these two things you can do on votefromabroad.org. You don't have to go here.
And just as an addition to what Charity is saying, one of the beautiful things about Vote From Abroad is it takes you directly to your home state's site. A lot of times, we Google and we, state elections for Florida or whatever, and it takes us off on these wild goose chases, and we don't actually have the official site. The beauty of Vote From Abroad takes you directly to the official site of the state, which connects you to your counties and your secretaries of state. So it's just a really, really easy tool. And as you saw, you can walk through each state and take a look at what the requirements are for everything, whether it's from how you register, how you list your status, how you're going to receive your ballot by email, by regular snail mail, by fax, and how you have to send it back. Charity, go ahead. Sorry to cut in.
I
I
wanna
just
jump
wanted to
in.
make that point.
Go ahead.
Charity,
Yeah.
it's Karen here. I want to just jump in and throw in a cautionary vote to exactly this comment. You can find out your registration if you're registered, or if you're in some kind of limbo at your state with the buttons that Charity was showing for Virginia. There'll be something similar. We were cautioned just this week, though, by the global GOTV chair, or Vote From Abroad chair, that when you go to the state site itself, some of this other information, though, even though one that we looked at earlier last week said UOCAVA, military and civilians overseas. However, they don't always keep that up. Our DA people, though, the volunteers on this VFA committee, have kept up with every state, and they've made sure that the information that we have on our part of the site, if you back out of your local state, is valid and current. And that happens because there might be something that says you have to show your state ID. I don't have a state ID. That's for local voters, but it's not for abroad voters. We have a different set of rules in some cases. So what you always want to do, if in doubt, is to come back to the Vote From Abroad, and ask our people. We've got a help desk, and they'll set you straight on that information, because every once in a while it doesn't show correctly on the state side. It depends on whether somebody was interested and updated it.
Okay. So
Sorry,
you have
Charity.
a question? Oh, Elisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if anyone at votefromabroad.org has made a video of the kind of guided tour that you're doing, because it's so helpful. I've used the site so many times for myself and when I'm on the phone with other people, but you just showed some corners that I had never really, looked at before. So I think it would be really helpful if somebody could make a YouTube video if they haven't already, and that we could send the link to that as part of our follow-up email. When we're doing those calls.
Okay.
Just a suggestion, because this is great.
It is. It's a great site. I can send that off to Heidi and suggest that they do that. They were talking about doing something, so yeah, that would help. All right, so we're in Virginia still, but it can't, the portal from votefromabroad.org brought us here. I won't go through all of this because we don't need to, but you can do it yourself, and it should tell you, you get to a screen that shows you, in my case, it says that the polling place where I would vote if I was there, that I'm active, and which means that my registration is active for the year, and some other stuff. So it's very helpful to know that. And the other thing that it can show you is you can check in Virginia and most states, I think, you can check the progress of your ballot and your registration at different points. And
Charity,
yeah, who's
can I
that?
ask a question? I see that it says check your registration status.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that means that it just says whether you're registered or not. One of the things that I've been a little involved with and realized more is that in some states, if you vote from abroad and they ask you questions about how long you intend to be out of the country, and those questions can limit what you're allowed to vote for or on.
That's correct.
And I wondered if that information exists anywhere.
You mean
If you
I
could
put
know
this
ahead
in-
of time, if you check the box that says you're not coming, or you're not, you don't know your return date, or you don't know when you're going to return,
Mhm.
that's going to limit you to only state elections, which happens to be true in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's true in Virginia.
Is there a site that gives that kind of information?
I haven't run across it, but I can keep
I
looking.
have.
Oh, Marion.
Yeah, in fact, here it is. I registered. I got this by email. And it says
What is that? Because I can't see it.
it is a voter registration absentee ballot request that summarizes all the information about me: last name, first name, middle name, social security number, date of birth, suffix, address, etc. And of course, there is a question, not only whether I have registered before in this particular office, whether I intend to return to the United States anytime soon or indefinitely, stay abroad, and then what is your political party for primary elections? They also have this information on.
That's pretty much what you fill out when you fill out your registration.
I was going to ask Charity and Marion, where did you get that from? You said you got it by email. Who did it come from?
I think I did it through Vote from Abroad.
So they sent you a copy of what you,
.org.
okay, great, because that means that you filled it in on VFA and they send you a copy of what you filled in, so for your records, and that's fine.
Yes.
If it came from some other source, you don't know, because those rules about, I'm sorry, Jerry, I'm stepping on yours, but.
No, that's fine.
Okay, and familiar. But those rules about indefinitely abroad, intend to return, and temporarily abroad, They vary from state to state. Everyone is slightly different. There's some that are similar, but you have to make sure that, there's not a one size fits all on that question. And each state has its own rules about who they allow to vote down ballot. But the federal elections, President, Senate, and House of Representatives, those we're always allowed to vote in, no matter how long we intend to stay abroad. Sorry about that.
Yeah, right. This is from Massachusetts.
Okay, Sarah Jane?
Oops. I just wanted to add that in our meeting the other day with Karen and Stacy organizing for this came up because in Texas, they changed the language on that choice. And it's a bit tricky because you're not sure what you should be answering, like legally, like, am I abroad indefinitely or am I going back? It wasn't clear. And so, well, I guess I answered it wrong because when I received my ballot, I can't vote for anybody because it's that special election. So I've basically lost my opportunity to vote down ballot. So it would be interesting if we could find a site that explained the choice being made. What are the implications? Like if you tick this, this is what happens. If you tick this, this is what happens. I felt a little disenfranchised.
Could you go to your election official and talk to them about it?
Well, I could go, I
Yeah.
guess, to the Harris County, the people who sent me my ballot and try and get a new ballot.
I want to jump in again. I would suggest you run that up to Heidi and ask her about it specifically. And Charity could help you with that, Sarah Jane, because if you go back to your county, you don't know who's answering the phone. It could be somebody like the woman in my county in Ohio, who's been doing this for 20 years, and she's been, in the last few years, the vote from abroad, the UOCAVA person designated to deal with us, pretty well informed. You might get another state and they're not in some outlying county. So you don't know there, but our people will go through and they'll get to the correct information for you. So we do have those help desks, and that's where you want to check first, I would say.
Okay, I think I guess the important issue here for me was the timeliness, that I wasn't prepared to answer that question. And I made the
That
wrong
happened to me
choice.
last year too, Sarah Jane, and that's why I'm particularly interested in it. But I will tell you that I did get involved with New Jersey, and they did some changes in it recently. And so I do think, and these are Democrats abroad people from what I understand. So I had the impression that they were going to look into each state and try to make some changes in the different states. So clearly they must know about what states have what rules. So that information has to be somewhere. It's a question of, I would even be willing to help somebody put it together if they would tell me where to go to find it. But I think it is good information to have because you can tick the right box. And right now it's so crucial that it's important.
Right. I mean, I agree. And I did find the information after the fact. I found it when I was online with Karen and Stacy. But, to rectify it at this point, I can try to do, but I think that it would be great if people didn't have to spend the time trying to rectify it. So
I think there's 2 or 3 things you need to think about here. We need to think about, not just you, Sarah Jane. One of them is, like, New Jersey tends to be a blue state, even though the governor was Republican. But that's a pretty strongly blue state, and chances are they're more on top of helping people to vote than certain other states might be who are trying to help people not vote. The Dems abroad people stay on top of the changes in the laws and can direct you to, where to get that information after the fact, not ahead of time, what Lee was talking about. They will advocate for changes in the law through that state. But remember that those laws are made by the state legislatures, and then implemented by the Secretary of State and a whole bunch of elections officials. And so those things are very much a movable feast. We can advocate for the changes, but we can't make the changes. Sometimes if we point out that there's some confusing language, the state people will pick up on it, or the county people will. Other times they won't, because it's in their interest not to. So we have a multi-pronged task here. One of the things that might help, though, is to alert people to the possibilities of these idiosyncrasies. And that could be done through an article that goes out to all of our members. And that maybe, along with the video that Alyssa suggested, is another good suggestion for, passing along to Heidi.
Karen,
Go ahead.
Karen, and what Sarah Jane brought up has led into a wider area now with all the fine points of registering to vote wherever you are. And of course, I've read all the alarmist literature that all of you have probably read about how Republicans are trying to game the system in so many states to have the people vote that are going to vote for them, and people who are not going to vote for them have a difficult road to hoe in order to get their ballots in. And I wonder, have you noticed anything about the websites to register from overseas? Is it going to be harder to register from overseas? Is this part of a Republican campaign too, or are they mostly interested in the domestic voters?
Was waiting for
I don't
Charity
think-
to jump
I
in.
don't think so. I mean, I from what I've read, we are by law allowed to vote. So I don't think that's possible.
Well,
I
in
mean,
the federal elections, we
Yeah,
are.
in the federal elections. In the local elections, some states, I've heard, I don't know for sure, but I've heard that some states allow you to vote in local elections, but as well as the federal. But most states, I think, probably hold that a little tight.
Do you think you can vote via email in most states? Because that solves a big problem for people who can.
And creates another one. And creates another one, Peter, because it is not secure. It is not secure. The best experts that we know on a global level with IT security, even faxing one back, faxes can be changed in the ether. So those states that allow you to vote by email are, yeah, it's easier, but it's not necessarily more secure. And then you get into this whole thing that we've gone through for the last year and a half now with it's been rigged and it's been stolen and so forth. So you want to avoid that.
Yeah, we sure do.
But that said, if you are when you ask for your ballot to be sent to you, getting it by email is a lot more predictable and quick than getting it through the mail, which, as we know, the last year and a half, the mails have just slowed down to a snail's pace everywhere.
Yeah,
So
that's spot on. That's spot on, Charity. You can get it, get the empty ballot by email for sure.
absolutely,
It's
yeah,
sending it back is the security issue.
yeah.
Here's the other one, though. Even though we're covered by federal law to vote in federal elections, if we can't get registered, or if they set the deadlines in such a way that by the time the ballot comes out and you have mail delays like we had in 2020, you might not get your ballot back in time. And that's essentially disenfranchising you once again, but legally. Okay.
Yeah,
so-
because the ballots are by law supposed to be sent to you 45 days before, but if the mail slows down to a snail's pace like it's been, you could get it at the time when election is due, So, yeah. So that,
My latest mail from the US has taken 1 month.
Yeah.
The East
Yeah.
Coast.
yeah, same here.
Which is why we're going to encourage you, at least from our vantage point, to request your ballot, that you receive it by email if that's possible in your state, because it means they're obliged at that 45-day mark ahead of the election to send it. And all it means is click and point. It's not a matter of jumping through postal hoops. And from that point on, it's on you to get it completed and send it out and make sure that it arrives in your state on time so that it is counted. And that's why, everybody else was talking about, November, And here in Greece, we're telling everybody, we want your ballot sent back in September. Do not think about October, September. Get it out by September.
As soon
Because
as
October
possible.
can be too late. You know, if there's a month's delay, that's it. You know, it could come in 10 days after the election and then it may not count.
Exactly. And the same thing, okay, so in reverse, talking about registering, the sooner that you get registered, you end up with the same thing, because some states want it by mail. They want you to, your signature, a wet signature. So you need to print it out, sign it, and send it away. And the sooner you do that, the more chance, the better chance you have of making sure that you are registered by the time we need to vote. Yeah, Sarah Jane.
I have a question with regard to mailing them. Would it be legal for Democrats abroad to organize an envelope of votes? I mean, a package of votes, or if someone's traveling to the States, to carry them and then put them in the mail there?
Who wants to jump in there?
Is that against the law?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's considered that we're gathering ballots and that's illegal. However, I will tell you that Ambassador Pyatt back in July had reached out to me, and he was very much in favor of the US Embassy once again in Athens having an event in collusion with Democrats abroad and Republicans and all of the expats groups, that we would do a ballot drop event so that our ballots could be taken in an official
Ouch.
embassy pouch and delivered to the US on time.
That's wonderful, Stacy. In Kenya, we went to the embassy to vote. There wasn't a party, but there was a time frame, and we actually voted at the embassy and just gave it to them under the glass.
In 2016, we were able to complete our ballots and gather together in a very celebratory fashion, bipartisan no less, and cast our ballots. And it was a fun event, but a few things changed thanks to COVID, and we were not able to gather and do that. But he was very much in favor of that happening, and hopefully his successor will also feel the same way. And God willing, the elements will allow us to gather so that we can do that. And that should be a good way to make sure that all of our ballots get delivered on time.
Stacy,
Bear in mind.
Stacy, now that you mentioned the ambassador, I read about Mr. Tsounis, who's the new nominee apparently to be the ambassador to Greece. Is there any word on when he's going to be approved by the Senate and when Pyatt is going to be leaving Greece?
He's been interviewed. I don't know that approval has come through yet. I know he was
The
interviewed.
committee has approved him, but he has to go to the full Senate now.
Mhm.
And they're dragging their feet.
Yeah.
Bear in mind about sending things back by pouch, however. That pouch goes to Washington, maybe Baltimore. After that, it gets separated by the US Postal Service and delivered to your county in the United States. How fast are the mails running in the United States? So if you have a ballot party in the middle of October, as it was in 2016, then chances are it won't get delivered in the United States, depending on your state. Some states require the thing to be there on election day. My state, it has to be mailed by election. You have 10 days afterwards for it to arrive. That gives Ohioans and some other states a little bit longer. But depending on all of these different changing conditions, even sending it back via the embassy could be too late to send. You know, better to send it middle October, the way Stacy was talking in the first place, and just get it back there. Send it by courier if you need to.
Yeah, obviously, if the embassy is going to back up a party like this, they're going to have to make sure that delivery will be on time. Otherwise, I don't think they would take it on. And let's also keep in mind that 2016, Obama was the president and the Postal Service was not quite the shambles that it is today. So there was, you know, a greater aptitude for things to arrive on time. Today, Biden is doing his best, but you know, it's still very, very slow going. So
No, he's still got DeJoy. That's the problem.
mhm.
And two commissioners that support him.
Andrea? Is Andrea there?
I kind of lowered my hand, but I can always talk about something. Yeah, quite a few years ago, and it was my suggestion, I don't know if they did it before, but it was to have a Dropbox at the embassy. This was long before any ideas of parties, but on the softer side of security, it's maybe not so convenient for people to get to the embassy. And I think that the Greek mail, I remember for the 2020 election, I sent it by regular mail, but you had a choice of, because it was COVID, that you could send it, that was a couple of euros, and it was supposedly a faster thing. I don't know if it was faster, but I think that you just have to send it out as early as possible. I think the US mail, even locally, is a total disaster. I've had an experience with trying to get a package delivered to a friend in the States, from the States, within the state. People don't, they just don't give a damn. I mean,
Andrea, I really like your idea about the Dropbox. However, it wouldn't function in the same way that it would in the States. Because number one, if there is a Dropbox, it means you're going to have that ballot addressed with US postage on it.
No, it was a Dropbox in the embassy. Went to the embassy, you went to the gate, and you said, I have my ballot.
So it was going through the
You didn't need
diplomatic
any
pouch then.
postage. You didn't need any postage.
So it was going through the diplomatic
If it-
pouch.
It
If
went
it goes
into-
through the diplomatic,
So it was in lieu of a party, you know, this gathering that, you know, and it was, but you had to go to the embassy. which
Okay,
isn't
I will bring that
supposed to
up in my discussions with the administration.
It's better than nothing. It's better than worrying, but you still have to get it there early.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you couldn't mail it on the eve of the election.
Randall, you wanted to make a comment?
I do want to make a comment. What Andrea said in the beginning is the best. Get it if your state requires you to use or gives you the opportunity to use postal mail, in addition to backing up your email return of your ballot. Do it yourself as fast as possible. But before you do that, take an opportunity starting now. Maybe you have already established it in past election years. Form a relationship with your local election official, so that official will be on the lookout for your ballot. That's the best advice that I know. If somebody is waiting for your ballot,
In New York City and Manhattan County, I don't know.
it doesn't matter. It's just a friendly face. It's just when you send an email, say something friendly, and
I can try, yeah. I mean,
The other thing, Andrea, as a Florida voter in Pinellas County, I receive an email telling me that they have received my ballot.
yes.
No, well, not in New York.
Yeah.
Andrea, just across the river,
Yeah.
personal email
I
from
can see it from my balcony. Yeah.
Anyway, look, I'm from a busy county too, or just across the river, and I asked for it, and actually, when you use Vote from Abroad to request a ballot, it automatically generates a message saying, to the local official for you, please let me know if you have received my request. And sure enough, the election official responded to my request for a ballot. and to my husband's. Totally separate, but loyally, and that's been going on since 2018.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. I'll definitely do that. But I also want to add a caveat in any, your ballot, you put it in an envelope and you have to sign that and then put it in another envelope. And one year I wasn't too heartbroken. It was some it was a primary, I think, something that wasn't critical. And I forgot to sign one year out of all the years that I've been voting from abroad. I forgot to sign the envelope that goes into the bigger envelope.
So Andrea, you sent in a naked ballot. You sent in a naked ballot.
And telling me, I'm sorry, we couldn't process your ballot because months later, it was in the summertime, because I remember my New York friend was visiting me at the time. So, you know, they did acknowledge that, that I goofed up, but this is something that's easy to forget. I think.
Charity, you want to jump on the naked ballot thing? I know it's 9 months away, but it's a good point to bring up because we were talking about it a lot in 2020. And we kept telling people, make sure you don't send in a naked ballot. So I'll let you explain that.
Well, go ahead, because I don't know a lot about it.
Okay, well, basically what Andrea was talking about was you send in your ballot, and normally if you're in a polling station, you're going to drop in the envelope and it's going to be anonymous, okay? But because we're sending from abroad and they have to verify that, you know, it's not just some hootenanny, you wrap it in another envelope, and sometimes you have to sign that depending upon what your states require. And there was a lot of mess about the naked ballots that went in, particularly, Karen, remind me, was it Pennsylvania that they had an issue with that?
New York.
Yeah, it's kind of a big blur, but those are some of the specific things that make voting difficult, but we want to get past those hurdles and make sure that there's nothing that's going to deter us from casting our vote and making it count. So walking through all of the instructions on your ballot and following the details specifically, that's what is the difference between your casting a vote or your vote going forsaken. So again, you know, follow the directions very carefully, not because we have anything against nakedness, but if it's going to count our ballot, no, we want that ballot to count. Charity, why don't you continue?
Okay. I just wanted to make the point about checking your registration, just to follow up on it and make sure that it's there after you've done it, so that you don't get any surprises, you know, in November or October when they don't send you your ballot. So just keep following up on it and make sure that you see yourself registered. If you have a problem, write or call your local official, like Randall was talking about. Let's see. So that's. Okay, and then we're back to votefromabroad.org. Now I want to go back to the front page, and we'll go to FAQs. Okay, and the FAQs has a lot of really great information that you can find, and the help desk is here. So if I click on the help desk, it brings up a little button, a little screen here, and you can type in your questions. It's manned by volunteers around the world. So if you have any questions, they might not be there right then when you do it, but they'll get back to you. Okay. And I said trouble getting rid of it. Anyway.
Not even on Nation Builder.
Pardon?
I said, it's not even on Nation Builder and you can't get rid of it.
I know. Well, there's a button down here, but all of your lovely pictures are there, and so it's covering up the button. Anyway, never mind. It says there that you have a global ballot. Shoot, I just can't see. What, can anybody read that? I can't read it.
Charity, why don't you hit that caret and the round red button at the bottom and see if that closes it?
Well, that's what I,
Down, the red button that I.
yeah, but I can't see it because all of these pictures, pictures of everybody are down there. Okay, now I got it. Okay, great. Oops.
Again.
Okay. So global voter assistance is not functioning at the moment. Maybe as we get closer to the election, it will. So here's some of the headers. You can read voting as a US citizen outside the US, and then some common questions. Returning a voted ballot, how to register to vote and get a ballot using the FWAB, Federal Write-in Absentee Ballot. Filling out the FPCA, the Federal Postcard Application. That's how you register to vote. US citizens who've never resided, they often have questions when you talk to people. They don't know exactly that they actually can vote. So this is some good answers on that. Okay, study abroad issues, federal tax and state implications. So a lot of really good things. If you have any of those questions, it's good to drill down in there. Okay. It is in English and in Spanish, which is fantastic. And that's about it.
Except for the start.
Pardon? Oh,
Start.
start, sorry, yeah. Okay, so this would be how you start to fill out your registration. And again, do it early and encourage other voters to do it early so that you have time to get it back. And if there's any problems with doing it, you can work out with your election office, whatever issues there are. This is, like Karen was saying, it's totally meshed with each state's rules and things that change every year. The Vote from Abroad crew have been doing a fantastic job getting it done, put together, and keeping on top of all the changes. So, and it even at the end, something new as of, when was it, a year or so ago, you can take a picture of your signature and do that right on board too, at the very end. So.
For those states which allow you to send it back by
states,
electronic means, if you
that's
have to
right.
send back a hard copy with a wet signature, then you're still going to have to print it out. A few states do still have that. And also for new voters, sometimes it's different. If you're already registered, we have to re-register every time we want to vote, or every year that we want to vote. And usually the states, most of the states now, you can send those back electronically, but new voters who've never registered before in that state might have to fill out a hard copy. But those, those questions come up, they're organic with the form.
Mm-hmm. And then the particulars for each state also come up. So, and that's pretty much votefromabroad.org. It's pretty comprehensive. And they're always upgrading it to make it better and try to get everything fit in there.
Here's the question, Charity. Suppose I'm used to getting my thing from, like, New York used to send out the ballots without you even asking for them, or California did. Or I'm looking for information and I find that state site where you can register to vote on your Secretary of State site. Why shouldn't I do it with my home state so they get it directly from me? Why should I do it through VFA, Vote from Abroad? What's the advantage of Vote from Abroad?
Well, from Vote From Abroad, you have, it's all in one place, but also it updates all of our data records for Democrats abroad. And also if you indicate that you're a Democrat, then and you're abroad, then it also asks you if you'd like to join Democrats abroad.
Thank you.
Mhm. Randall? You're muted. And you too, Stacy.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to point out in the chat that the votefromabroad.org website is there for you to click on. So you might want to save the chat. And also I've put in the link for the YouTube to Vote From Abroad that will walk you through this. It's about a 7-minute YouTube so that you can walk through that. If you don't want to do it live with somebody, you want to do it that way first, or you want to send it on to somebody who wants to do it on their own, you can use that. And if they get stuck, please reach out to us, because that's why we're here. We want everybody to get registered.
I think the main argument for using Vote From Abroad to register, and you don't have to join Democrats Abroad to do that, is that you're going to have a structure of people who are wanting to solve problems and wanting to troubleshoot for you. If you register for your state, you're going into a large mechanism. I mean, a large public mechanism who might not have the time of day for you, or may not give you accurate guidance, whereas Vote From Abroad is committed to helping you. I think that's the difference.
I think that's a really good answer. And I would point out also that one of the things we've been hearing back from the states are the number of election officials at the county level who have resigned, who have got out of Dodge because it was so hard in 2020. And some of them, got threats as well afterwards because of all the brouhaha about the big lie. And so you don't know with your state who you're talking to, and they might be understaffed and overloaded by the time you're trying to get an answer from them. So that what you just said, Randall, is absolutely true. We're out here and we've got people who are coming up to speed as experts per state, to help folks. So it's really important.
I don't want to say anything about your local official, election official. I want to say the state structure. You might get lost in the state structure. I hope that there are a lot of wonderful election officials who have continued in their jobs, and they'll be waiting for us in November, I hope.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that too. And I know mine in Franklin County, Ohio, Columbus, have been excellent over the years. I started out talking to Mary Tompkins on the phone long before all of this electronic stuff. But what we have to remember too is that, first of all, some of those are outlying counties where they're not as well connected always. And secondly, a lot of the people who left the Corps last year was because of COVID, because they were elderly. A lot of retired people worked for the elections, and some of them with years of experience. And we've lost some of that, because of the pandemic. So, it's not to cast aspersions on them so much as just saying that it's been a really hard year for election officials. So, you need all the backup you can get, I guess. It's the best way to say it.
If we don't have any other questions for Charity, no, I don't see any hands up. Charity, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, we said we might want to talk about what was going on presently, whether it's about legislation with voting rights. We have a retirement from a justice from the Supreme Court that has just come on and offered some great possibilities, considering that we're in year 2 of a Biden administration. I don't think Mitch is going to raise any red flags on what we can or can't do. So woohoo. Is there something that somebody wants to bring up? Okay. is that a hand raised that I'm seeing from Chris? Daniel, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Okay, that worked. You said a Supreme Court justice is retiring. Who is it? When was this announced?
We are just getting the news over the chat. Breyer has said,
Okay.
So that was
I
good
got
news for me.
a news flash from.
Yeah,
the
I'm seeing it
Congress.
too, coming on my screen. The news alerts are coming as well.
Yeah.
So that's something really good to look forward to.
Yes.
Okay, do we want to have any further discussion, or are we talked out and flutied out?
I have. some.
I'm seeing hands up from Marion and then Andrea. Was that a hand up, Marion? Did you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Would you like to invite somebody to talk to us about women's issues or other political issues, you know, in one of our next Kafeneions?
Thank you for bringing that up. That's a really, really good point. So far, Sarah Jane and her team, Marion and Randall, as well as Rebecca Lieb, have put together some great Kafeneions for us with the purpose of sitting back and discussing issues and hearing presentations. Are there topics that you would like to see explored further? One of the things that we've been talking about, and I'll let Sarah Jane go into this in a little bit more detail, is the environment coming up in April.
She had to leave.
Okay, we're talking about some grassroots folks who have worked with the environment on the ground here in Greece, and they would be willing to come in on as speakers for us, and we're looking at that for April. For March, we're exploring the possibility of taking a look at women's issues. And Randall, you want to talk a little bit about what's coming up for the February Kafeneion? Unmute yourself.
Randall, your microphone.
No, I realized that. I was just saying it's, if Peter is still on, Peter would be a good person to talk about what's happening in February.
I'm not seeing him. That's why I went to you.
Okay, February 16th is a fresh look at Greece. And I'm saying those words because it's a handy way of describing what's going to happen. It's not a title, it seems. We haven't decided on a title, but it is a reporting of from unusual non-capital and non-second city environments of Greece. This is Stephen Pagel, former Fulbrighter and currently with Stavros Niarchos Fellowship at the International Center for World Affairs, posting dispatches over the next 2 years from Thrace, from Alexandroupolis, from Chios, and then from Crete. And he is involved in the cultural and literary and social and environmental aspects, as well as the political. And because he's a very articulate and visually oriented young man, he is a speaker that we wanted to engage for a lively Kafeneion that people will feel, let's say, relaxed and able to share their questions and their comments with him after, let's say, a brief presentation of how he sees a country that he has come to love very much.
Grace, yeah. Thanks, Randall.
Yep.
Marion, did you want to talk a little bit about female issues in March? One of the things that we had talked about, or do you want to just?
Well, we can invite somebody from the States to do the introduction, or we can use the State Department event as a starter here, conversation starter. I'm going to participate.
Yeah,
in-
I was just going to say, do you want to talk a little bit about the presentation you're going to be making later on?
Okay, I was invited by Department of State to talk about something that would have to do with women's issues. So I chose the ancient Spartan woman as a role model for modern people because there was equality more than you can imagine there. And Spartan women used to exercise and they used to walk around, half naked and nobody cared because it was not a sexual thing there, and they were completely integrated in the goals of their society. There is somebody else who's going to talk about the history of women who have been role models, important women, and there's going to be one more person whose topic I don't know yet. But we could use their speeches and talk about that on our own day.
What's the date on that, Marion, that you'll be presenting?
Ancient Spartan women.
What's the date? The date?
Oh, what's the date? Sorry, I didn't hear you. March the 8th.
Okay.
It's going to be 12 o'clock Eastern time, or 11 and something like 6 or 7 o'clock here.
Okay. I'll be sharing that on my Facebook page, and we'll be putting it up also on our Dems Abroad page, as well as the DAGR Women's Caucus page. I saw hands up from Christine Politis and Andrea. Christine, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question about I'm back to the mailing. Would it benefit us to go to the post office and register the envelope? That's one question. And the other one is, can't you send it by courier? I know it's an expense, but it's a safe way and fast and sure. So it's
Charity?
courier. Yeah, courier or registered.
Yeah, either one would work.
I mean, that's,
Registered is just fine. Registered is just fine.
yeah, it's a safer way and it's faster.
I'm sorry, but in September of 2020, for the national election, I sent my ballot in registered. I mailed it in September. I never received notification that it had been received. I ended up sending in my ballot by fax, and then spent months wondering whether or not I was going to be done for voter fraud for having voted twice. But I sent mine registered and it never arrived. So registered should, and it was tracked, but
Daniel, it was Trump up there back then, and I did that online. Same thing. I registered 3 times. Nothing happened. I never got an answer back. And then
I was registered. I was registered. I had my ballot. I voted. I did everything. I put it in 2 envelopes, and then I went to the post office and I mailed it as a registered letter. And I received no notification.
No matter what you did, it was a different person up there.
One of the things that they've recommended to us over and over again is that perhaps sending it registered, making it required from somebody within your state or your county election office that has to sign for it, it's not going to happen. So it's better to send it by simple mail and hope that you're going to get an email back saying that they have received it, as opposed to registered, because somebody has to sign for it.
That actually might be something to check ahead of time. And my story in 2018 was, I sent it registered from ELTA one time, and I didn't hear anything. And so we ran the trace through ELTA. It left the downtown central, Syntagma post office that evening, arrived at the airport, arrived in the United States, and was sent back to Hungary. where ELTA finally retrieved it from them. You know, it took them almost a month. And so I had to do an FWAB in the meantime. You were like, what? And I went on a Postal Service employees site, and they said they never got it. It was stopped at the customs, you know, coming into the country. So again, we were during the Trump era, but we're not out of that completely yet. So we need to find out. And chances are the VFA people will be watching these problems as well. And you could call your county and ask them, do you sign for the stuff when it comes in if I send it registered? And if they say, yeah, then go for it. If they say, no, we can't do that, we've got this huge department, it doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
and you don't even have to call. You can send an email and find out, you know, whether they are having somebody that's willing. And if so, what that person's name is, who is there to collect the mail. Simple as that. Judy, I saw your hand up earlier. Did your question get answered?
It wasn't a question. I'm reporting on a registered mail thing because I had to pay extra for the tracking. And I have done that. It's taken 11 days to get from Petralina to the airport, and another 11 days to get from the airport in Greece to some airport in America. I have no idea where. It's supposed to go to Montana. I have no idea what's happening to it. I'll report to you later, but it's a very important document that I have to get to somebody in America. And the cost of sending it by courier was over 140 euros. More than I have.
Yeah. Yeah, you were literally paying for Pony Express. Andrea, you had your hand up earlier as well.
Well, I can address the issue. I was told by postal official a long time ago that had nothing to do with this ballot business, that when you send something registered mail to the United States or something, that it is slower. It's a slower process. And he just said slower. At that point, it wasn't whether it would arrive or not. But I can just say what I 2 years ago, repeat what they just sort of said, do you want to send it regular mail or do you want to put a boost on it? And I said, okay, boost, you know, it wasn't registered though. It was just a little bit more expensive. Anyway, what I wanted to say is off the topic completely about how to send your ballot. I still say, take it to the post office and mail it. Is that we are planning to have a proper Athens Pride this year. And fingers crossed, but I think that this year the pessimist and COVID phobe think we can do this, and I'm behind doing it. The date is June 18th, Saturday in Syntagma. So I hope that if we go ahead and do this, that'll mean that the situation is safe enough to do it. That Dems Abroad will have a booth.
We are very much hoping that there will be a pride, and we will very much be there with a booth so that we can follow up with an Independence Day celebration on the 4th of July in person. So
That's
yes.
That's right. The other thing is that we just had our first meeting last Tuesday as a team. So we're getting a slow start, but we're off and running. We don't have a synthema, a slogan yet, but the theme for this year is safe space, safer spaces, that we are claiming: safe at home, safe in schools, safe at work, and safe in the streets. It's not going to be safe from COVID. It's personal safety in all these places, which the time has come to really address. So that's what I have to say about Athens Pride, and I'll keep you updated. Thanks. If you don't see the stuff online on social media.
Thanks.
And so fingers crossed, everyone, for every reason. That's what I have to say.
Okay, folks. Any other comments? Marion?
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Just want to go back to the registration issue. I think the best way is still online, to do that online. And if people have trouble, I think they should go to a friend or they should address us to help them do that online, because you can track. First of all, it is inexpensive. Secondly, you can track where your application or your ballot are. So.
And Karen's going to jump in there with her story again.
Yeah.
Which story would that be?
The ballot in Hungary.
The ballot in Hungary, yeah. No, but I would like to say that Saturday at something like, I think 4 o'clock Athens time, I've lost track, the Ohio team of Democrats Abroad is having its first kickoff webinar meeting. And we've got the president of the Ohio Election Officials Association, and we've got 2 people from the DNC Redistricting Committee, and Heidi Birch from Democrats Abroad. We'll be doing another walkthrough. So, but that'll be for Ohio voters and friends. Anybody else who wants to come can do it. The event, I believe, is up on the Greece events page on the website, easy to find. If the mailer ever goes out, we'll be moving ahead with the event.
Thanks, Karen. And thank all of you for joining us tonight. Happy 2022. Let's make sure 2022 is blue. And have a good evening. If you need us, you know where to find us. Please email or message us through Messenger or through our Facebook page, but do reach out. We want to hear from you. You guys are our asset. You guys are what makes us strong. And at the moment, we're 1,400 strong, so that's pretty damn good increase. Thanks a lot. Have a good night. And hopefully we'll be in person sooner than later. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Great. Thank
Charity,
you.
thanks for all of
Good
the
night.
info and the walkthrough.
Thank you, Charity. Very good.
Bye. Thanks all.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.